What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Payne. Welcome back to another Street Fighter Duel video. Alright guys, we've done the April tier list. We are now in May and we're in the middle of May, so no better time than now to update it. Now this one here specifically has had some modifications and we're looking at the PVE tier list. That is going to be challenge mode, towers, and factional towers, so Supreme Fist specifically, okay? The boss tier list and the PvP tier list I will be updating next in the same video, so you get it all in one shot. There are some honorable changes here, guys, and I want to talk about them with further testing on the free-to-play side as well as the pay-to-win. Now, this is going to be looking at it the same way we've been looking at it from day one. This is if you have fully maxed out SSS plus 5 with 6 cars and full FS30, because that's, at the end of the day, the real goal of these characters. That's where you want to take them, right? So, is it worth your resources and time to get these characters and where they land? Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the major changes that have happened, okay? So, number one, Bison, Ken, Bizang stayed the same, okay? After some further testing on the free-to-play side with Street Poison, and then doing it again on the whale side, there were a lot of discussions with some folks about where she should land. And I agree with you guys. After doing even more testing, she deserves to be an SS character. And the reason, there's two reasons behind that. Number one, she has a charm, of course, which is the mini toxic love, which I talked about in the first video I ever made about her, that it's a mini toxic love. It can stop combos, it cause an interrupt, etc. Just like an interrupt does, right? But more importantly, her buffs are absolutely broken and are required in end game, mid game, and beginning game. So for those who fought for her to be higher up, there you have it. I agree with you now. I've done a lot more testing and she definitely is a key component to any successful PvE team, whether that's in faction towers with wind or if that's going to be inside any PvE challenge story mode. And hell, let's talk about events as well too, right? She's a non-binary character, which means she's not a he or a she. She can be used in either or sections, and that makes her even more popular as a buffing character and the best buffer in the absolute game. So one thing that I will note is that Rose was actually sitting here originally at SS. I've actually moved her down to S plus now instead because of how long it takes for her buffs to actually take into effect. As good as they are, I'd rather have 3 buffs, the best buffs right from the get-go, especially with FS30, and they're constantly just the normal attack, and they stack 3 or 5 times. I don't remember what it was. But nonetheless, Rose now takes a step down, and Poison is now the queen of buffs. So definitely worth it. And bonuses, she's free to play. So amazing. And Fashion Blanca now has been updated up there to SS as well, because quite honestly, as a free-to-play unit, and the only legendary we get without paying money, he is the total package when it comes down to DPS, survivability, and overall buffing. So absolutely deserves to be sitting up there. So that will be there as a top tier unit for us to look at. He was originally an S+. So now let's talk about the S+. As I mentioned, Akuma still sits there, only because he's super squishy. I know a lot of you guys are going to talk about this, and these two here, Sea Viper and Guile, definitely deserve to be SS in their own right. The only reason why they're not at SS, guys, quite honestly, is that most whales will not use them as the main DPSs, right? Most whales will use MH Ken, will use Fashion Blanca, and these guys will be backup for Team 2 and 3, okay? Not to say they're not the best DPSs in the game for free to play. They are. They're arguably SS as well, but I'm going to leave them where they are, just same as Akuma. Okay, so Rose, like I mentioned, is there, and E Honda and Zangief are definitely the 2 best tanks in the game and deserve to be in the S+. Elena, I kept the same. Arguably can be an S+ as well. Is required at mid to end game, but again, Street Poison kind of takes over. If you're interrupting all the time, you don't really need a healer if you're doing it right, at least, but again, this is PvE, right? And Factional Tower, she's a required for Emery. So I put her here in the front, not that its hierarchy is required where she's positioned, but she can be arguably an S+ as well too, but I'm still going to keep her an S for now because I've used her so many times throughout all my thing, and I still don't see an S+ for her, especially because her 6 cars, in my opinion, are pretty bad. Not bad, but they're limited to what they can do. I know there's some argument about them saving people's, runs here and there, but just not that good. Again, definitely drop down to S from S+ because he's been power crept by a lot of units. Jury, same thing, has gone down. Dawson has gone down to S. T Cami can arguably be S+ here as a DPS. with 6 cars. You know what? Yeah, let's toss her up there. I think she deserves it. Cammy for PVE purposes is definitely an S, not an S plus or SS, because in bosses she would be, but this is a PVE one. Blanca definitely an S. Abel is definitely an S. I put Sakura down to an S. I think maybe she was an S plus before. And Chun-Li arguably can be an S plus as well with everything that she does with her FS30 and her cars. Just there's better options, so hence why I have her at S. Okay, not to say that she's not arguably an S plus, but I'm going to keep her an S. Okay, with A's, Flame Chun-Li, Vega, Dante, all new. Now Dante can be argued a little bit to be an S because we're considering 6 car bonus here, including FS30. Right, and with the 3 cars, he can do a freeze, which can actually interrupt combos. The problem with him is he's not a very good unit for multipliers, for damage, and he's a dodge mechanic unit. And on top of that, his C2, which is his C1, which transforms him into a demon, stops combos. So it's like a Hail Mary almost that you want to use at the end. And he starts off really slow and requires way too much ramp up for speed. So unfortunately, A for now until more testing, but I don't think he's going to go higher than that for quite some time, which is very unfortunate. Adana was also debating on putting an S, but I think there's too many like people here that outclass him. M. Ryu, amazing DPS, but just suicidal. Just kills himself all the time. And the rest of these guys you already kind of know. So there you have it, guys. This is the PVE version of the event, or of the tier list for May. I'm jumping on to the boss one right now, and then we'll do the PvP one right after. All right, guys. We'll see you guys in shortly. All right, guys. Welcome to part 2. Now, this is going to be the boss/event list that we're talking about for the month of May. Now, bosses is going to be like the guild bosses, Zangief, Max Zangief in the Shadowlands, event bosses like Dante, Akuma, etc. These are going to be the best units and the worst units to look at for events. So let's talk about the top SS list. Akuma for sure is going to sit at the top for top DPS for a while. If you have him, most likely you're going to be using him for most boss fights. Bison, of course, MH Ken, of course, they just bring way too much to the table to miss out on. And then, of course, the 3 top units outside of Akuma will be T Kami for a lot of the boss fights, especially single target ones. F Blanca pretty much rocks on every boss fight, so sits on top. And then, of course, you cannot be without Poison's buffs. So those guys right there are going to be the top units in the game for any event or boss fights for the month of May. All right, now going to S+, again, these are very, very close to SS again. I just want you guys to understand, these 3 specifically, Cammy is literally built for boss fights. Her entire mechanic, armor break, the fact that her calculations based on max HP, etc., is a boss fight setup and stat. So Cammy is going to be a killer in boss fights for free-to-play. Same with Viper with her armor energy, and also with Guile with his saber. So 3 of the best free to play, and arguably could be SS as well. But again, just don't bring as much as these ones, so I don't want to rank them up there at same caliber, but they're so close, right? And then Gen and Jury are power crept, unfortunately, by T Kami, Fashion Blanca, and Akuma, so they fall down there, but they're still very good. Chun-Li brings a lot to the fold, right? So she's very, very good for combo build, crit increase, and as well as speed. So very good unit, especially as a support, and actually can dish out pretty good damage as well too, especially on boss AoE fights. And then Rose, of course, for her buffs, right? Everybody else here kind of falls flat. Now, the reason I put Chun-Li here is that she's a great addition to Fashion Blanca. Realistically, an assist would be the best position. That's why she sits in S, only for that reason. And the fact that she brings flame vulnerability to help him out to do more damage. That's the only reason why she's up here, and she does a really good job of it. So, but if she hadn't have that, she'd be way lower in the tier. Madaryu, of course, because he actually is a good combo dealer. Plus, he does a debuff dispel of a shield, so very useful. Fashion Sakura can heal, do damage herself, and as well as damage reduction. So overall, a great buffer. Adon, amazing buffs and great hatred mark debuff, plus actually dishes out pretty good damage and has a counter Jaguar kick. So and a very slept on unit for bosses. Could definitely be a little bit higher even. I gotta still do more testing on that one. Dulcim, good for multi-unit bosses, not the greatest, but still does enough damage to stay there. Elena, of course, you want to use her, but now that everyone's using poison, and if you can use the EX move, she kind of falls down a little bit in the boss list, but still very good. And Blanca, actually, for an AoE unit, can do really good damage against boss fights if you use them. Dante, unfortunately, doesn't bring much to boss fights, so he's going to be an A. Vega, Bleed, it just isn't there yet. Unfortunately, I have him maxed out with FS30, 6 cars. He's just not bringing enough to the fight. So unfortunately, bleed yet hasn't been fully utilized. I think maybe there's a team that you have to build around him eventually, and he'll probably rise up the ranks once we see that. But right now, just not enough to be anything higher than an A. Then right here, you can just see the rest of the list here, guys. B Zhang, of course, falls down really low into B. He does have a bleed and can do more damage with grave injury. Bosses can't be stunned or interrupted. He loses a lot of his utility there. He does bring a little bit of speed, so I didn't want to give him lowest stats, but he does. You don't want to use him against bosses. He just doesn't bring anything to the fight for you to maximize your damage, right? And then of course all the tanks will sit in the bottom because you don't bring tanks to these fights. Real quick, a lot of people might ask about the Capre. She does have execute. It's 800%, but it doesn't crit. The multiplier is not that high. If you look at, for example, Cammy, who has 1,000+% plus armor break plus max HP damage, that can go up to 1,500, 1,600% multiplier. Why the heck, and can crit? Why the heck would you bring the Capra to a fight when you have that? So that's the reason why I want to make sure people understand that, okay? So this is your list, guys, for the month of May on boss and event fights. Last one to do is going to be the PvP list. Let's go over that one real quick. Alright guys, welcome back to part 3. Now this is the last tier list and this is going to be the PvP focused tier list. Alright, so let's start off with the top mentions. Nothing really has changed here. It's going to be Akuma, Bison, Bizang, Flame, Fashion Blanca, and MH Ken. Those guys are going to be your best PvP units, hands down. There's nobody going to be better than these ones. Now, some honorable mentions real quick. Vega. The reason why Vega is so high up here, guys, remember this is 6 cars, SSS plus 5, right? Even as a free-to-play though, if you have him, he's the fastest base unit in the game. He has 160 base speed, which means you have him on your team with Bizang or just even by himself, chances are you're going first. And usually in PvP, whoever goes first is most likely going to win the battle. So Vega sits there on top of that for that reason. Poison, I moved up from S to S plus because of her buffs, plus the fact that she has a charm ability. So arguably can be SS, but I don't think she in the PvP mode fits quite as well as PvE because a lot of PvP modes are automatic as well too. So you can't control timing and stuff. T-Cami moved up one as well too because she does have a self heal with the C2 and does do quite a bit of damage with the shock. Debuff is nice and she's actually fairly fast. So she's moved up there. Rose has always been there. Sea Viper arguably again could be SS. Ugal arguably could be SS. And PvP arguably can be SS also for Chun-Li. She's one of the fastest base units in the game. And then Honda for sure. For PvP as a tank, if you don't have Bison, he's the best tank in the game, like for PvP. Desperation and self-healing, it's an absolute nuisance for everybody that fights him. Even him with Bison is even worse because he goes in the front, Bison goes in the middle, messes up everyone's rotations because they're now forced to hit Bison as well as the Honda with cleave teams, and it just rocks you, right? Dante and will be sitting in S. The only reason why is he has the freeze ability, but he's super slow, so. And if you set up his combo to be a C1 from the beginning, you're screwed for PvP. So he sits in S because he does bring some utility. He does have the dodge mechanic and the dodge trigger damage. So I put him in S for now for PvP, but I mean, he could be lower, might be a tad bit higher. We have to still check that out, but this is where I'm going to place him for now. Jury, Ganaval dropped down from S plus to S. Elena also S. Fashion Sakura could be arguably to an S plus. But again, not totally there yet. Zangief could also be an S plus because of his passive removal on PvP. But again, because PvP is mostly automatic, there's only like 1 or 2 PvP modes where we can do manual. It causes an issue because you can't time the passives, right? But he could arguably be an S plus. You know what? Actually, I'm going to toss him up there. He deserves to be S plus. Never mind. Adon S for sure for damage and his buffs. Dawson for sure S for his AoE damage. Great on cleave teams. Cleave teams being AoE guys, so that's area of effect, hitting multiple units at once. Mad Ryu could be an AoE unit technically. If you knock out one person, he just keeps doing Hadouken, and goes through them. His biggest, of course, crippling issue is the fact that if M Bison's in the front and he's not exploding, the Hadouken will hit on Bison and then blow him up. So that's kind of the issue. And then he doesn't do the Hadoukens over and over again. And he, again, self-suicides, right? Blanca, good AoE unit, able, great for PvP for the shield. Just not as good as the other 2 tanks because it's a little more random based where the shield jumps and everything. The A's, pretty much Flame Chun-Li's in here. I put Cammy up to A instead of B for PvP because she does do quite a bit of damage. But unfortunately, she's a little bit, honestly, she could be S even, but I don't want to put her higher than that, so let's keep her there. And then you round down here for the rest of the units. So there's your PvP tier list, guys. That's all 3 tier lists done now for the month of May. So use this as your reference for now. As new units come out, I'll do one for June, and we'll add in the new ones as they come along, and we'll rate them and readjust these tier lists accordingly. Remember, these can all be found on the Google Sheets that's linked into the video. all of my stuff is on there. I do need help with the Google Sheets, so if anyone wants to volunteer to help out, let me know. That is putting in the assist units that are coming out, the new ones with all the descriptions and just following my format. And then also for the FS 0 to 40, it's really hard to do it all by myself when new units drop because I'm so busy. But if anybody wants to help, let me know in the comment section, and hopefully we can work something out and maybe get some of you guys to jump in here and help out with that list. All right, guys, this is Payne. I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.